If you've been flying for years without serious problems, 2026 may be the first year where that experience quietly starts working against you. Not because you forgot how airports function, not because you broke a rule or skipped a step, but because the way airports decide who moves forward and how fast has fundamentally changed. In 2026, the first decision is no longer made by a person, it is made by a system. Screens now decide before conversations happen. The people you speak to are often not evaluating you in real time. They are confirming a decision that was already made about you long before you reach the counter. That shift explains something many travelers find confusing and frustrating: why perfectly normal passengers are suddenly delayed, flagged, or denied boarding with little or no explanation. Airlines rarely announce these changes clearly. Airports assume frequent travelers already understand them, and by the time most people realize something is wrong, the clock has already run out. This video is not meant to create fear or panic. It is meant to replace confusion with preparation, because the biggest travel changes in 2026 are not just about new rules or updated policies. They are about how decisions are being made quietly, instantly, and automatically inside the airport, every single day, without requiring discussion, warning, or permission. Once you understand that shift, the recent chaos many travelers experience starts to make sense, and more importantly, you can stop being surprised by it. Change number 1. Identification is no longer judged, it is scored. For years, travelers believed that identification issues could usually be resolved at the airport. An ID might be older but still valid. A document might be close to expiration. A name might appear slightly different from what was entered during booking. In the past, situations like these typically led to questions and brief checks, not instant rejection. In 2026, that assumption has quietly become dangerous. The most important change is not a new form of identification, it is who, or rather what, is making the decision. Identity verification has shifted away from human judgment and into system-based evaluation. When your ID is scanned, matched, or verified, it is analyzed immediately by automated systems. These systems compare your document against multiple databases, formats, and consistency markers in seconds. Once that result appears on the screen, the employee in front of you has very limited flexibility. This is why so many travelers describe the same unsettling sequence. The boarding pass stops scanning. The agent pauses, their tone changes, and then they explain that they cannot continue, not because of an argument, not because of behavior, but because the system did not approve the identity check. What makes this especially frustrating is that many affected travelers did nothing wrong. Their ID looks valid. It worked on previous trips. They flew with it last year without issues. The problem is not legality. The problem is tolerance. In 2026, acceptable margins are smaller. Near-expiration documents, formatting inconsistencies, and minor mismatches are less likely to trigger follow-up questions and more likely to trigger automated blocks. Secondary screening is no longer guaranteed. Extra explanations no longer reliably help. And once luggage is checked and departure time is close, practical options disappear fast. The most dangerous part is when these failures occur. They often surface after check-in, after long security lines, and right before boarding, when there is no realistic time left to fix documentation or escalate a problem. This is the shift travelers struggle to accept. In 2026, identification is no longer a conversation, it is a decision. And once that decision turns negative, every part of the travel process begins to unravel from there. Change number 2. Your travel pattern now carries more weight than your ticket. For most travelers, a confirmed ticket has always felt like the final authority. If you paid, received confirmation, and checked in successfully, you assumed the rest of the process would take care of itself. In 2026, that assumption quietly stops being true. Airlines and airports are no longer focused only on this flight. They're evaluating your pattern. This is why many travelers feel blindsided. Nothing about their current trip seems unusual. Their documents are valid, their destination is ordinary, their behavior in the terminal is calm and cooperative, and yet something feels off.
unexplained screenings, unexplained delays, or a boarding pass that suddenly triggers additional steps. In most cases, the issue has very little to do with today's flight. Modern airline systems now review booking behavior over time. How often flights are changed, how close to departure tickets are purchased, whether reservations are frequently canceled and rebooked, whether tickets are bought directly or through third-party platforms, even how predictable or irregular a traveler's history appears when compared to typical passengers on similar routes. None of these actions are prohibited. Many are completely reasonable, especially for travelers with flexible schedules, occasional travel habits, or those who rely on price alerts and online deals. But in 2026, normal actions can still create a recognizable pattern, and patterns are exactly what automated systems are designed to evaluate and flag. This explains why arguing at the counter almost never works anymore. The employee is not accusing you of wrongdoing. In many cases, they cannot even see the full reasoning behind the flag. All they can see is that the system has marked the booking for additional attention. That gap creates a new kind of frustration. You followed every visible rule, yet the process still slowed down. Because in 2026, compliance alone is no longer the only factor being measured. Most travelers do not realize this shift until they experience it themselves. They believe the ticket is the proof that everything is in order. In reality, the ticket is now just the entry point. And once a booking pattern triggers extra scrutiny, it feeds directly into the next change, the one that catches most people completely off guard.
Change number 3. Carry-on bags are now interpreted, not just checked. When travelers think about carry-on rules, they usually focus on obvious restrictions: liquids, sharp objects, electronics, and prohibited items. The common belief has always been simple: if everything inside the bag is technically allowed, the bag should pass without issue. In 2026, that logic no longer holds. Delays are now caused less by what you carry and more by how the system reads it. This is why many travelers are pulled aside even though they're carrying items they have flown with for years. The sequence is familiar. Your bag moves through the scanner. The screen reacts. The pace changes immediately. You are asked to step aside. Secondary inspection begins. Questions are asked. Other passengers move forward. Nothing illegal is found, nothing dangerous is removed, and yet the delay has already happened. The reason is not suspicion, it is sensitivity. Screening systems in 2026 are trained to react to irregularities rather than intent. A carry-on packed differently than usual, electronics layered in an unexpected order, items grouped in ways the system does not typically see. Medical supplies, travel accessories, backup devices, or personal gear that is fully permitted can still appear unusual when analyzed automatically. Airports are now optimizing for speed and risk prediction, not common-sense explanations. When the system hesitates, the process slows. Officers follow the signal on the screen, not the story you provide. This creates a specific kind of frustration. Travelers often blame themselves. They assume they packed incorrectly or violated a rule they somehow missed. In reality, the rules themselves have not changed. What changed is tolerance. Small inconsistencies now trigger outsized delays, and the impact goes beyond time. Once a bag is flagged for additional screening, it becomes part of your overall airport profile for that day. When combined with identity verification and booking patterns, delays begin to compound. This is the moment many travelers sense that something feels wrong, even though they cannot identify a single clear mistake. And this shift does not affect all travelers equally. Without warning, it tends to impact one group more than others, which leads directly to the next change.
Change number 4. Why travelers over 55 feel the impact first. This is the change many people hesitate to talk about, but it explains a large part of what is happening inside airports in 2026. Travelers over 55 are not being singled out because of age. This is not discrimination. It is a design side effect. Airport systems today are built around recent travel behavior, and anything that falls outside those patterns stands out more clearly. For decades, experience was an advantage. Knowing airport routines, arriving early, staying calm, and politely explaining a situation often helped resolve problems. That logic shaped how many seasoned travelers still move through airports today. In 2026, that advantage has quietly faded. Older travelers are more likely to rely on long-used identification, follow familiar routines, pack the same way every trip, and book flights using methods that made sense years ago. None of this is wrong, but when automated systems are trained primarily on modern booking habits, digital-first behavior, and newer packing patterns, these perfectly reasonable habits can appear unusual. This is why many experienced travelers are shocked when they face delays or extra screening for the first time in their lives. They are not breaking rules. They are doing exactly what always worked before. The issue is not behavior, it is mismatch. And once that mismatch appears, the system does not explain it. There is no alert saying your habits are outdated, no warning, just a slowdown, a flag, and a quiet decision made by a screen. That experience can feel deeply unfair, it can feel personal, but it is neither. The real risk is assuming that politeness, patience, or experience will override the process. In 2026, the process rarely bends, and that leads directly to the most important shift of all.
Change number 5. The human override has quietly disappeared. For a long time, travelers believed there was always a human backup. If a system made a mistake, an employee could step in. If something felt wrong, you could explain. If rules were unclear, judgment could fill the gap. In 2026, that safety net is largely gone. Airports and airlines have steadily reduced what frontline employees are allowed to override. Automated decisions now occur earlier in the journey, sometimes before you even reach the counter. Identity checks, risk assessments, and screening priorities are increasingly determined by systems long before a human ever reviews your documents. This explains a feeling many travelers now share. The employee understands the situation, they may even agree with you, but they still cannot help. The agent is not being unkind, they are constrained. The decision displayed on their screen is final, and in many cases they do not have the authority to change it. This shift explains why calm explanations no longer resolve issues, why experience no longer saves time, and why airports feel less human even though people are still everywhere. Modern airport operations are designed for speed, consistency, and risk reduction. Human judgment introduces variability, and variability is exactly what these systems are built to minimize. Once you understand this, frustration starts to make sense. You stop taking delays personally, and more importantly, you realize something critical. Successful travel in 2026 is not about convincing someone, it is about never triggering the system in the first place. That realization can be uncomfortable, but it is also empowering, because when you understand how the process actually works, you can prepare for it. Change number 6. Your digital footprint now travels with you. Most travelers still believe that the airport experience begins when they arrive at the terminal. In 2026, that belief is outdated. Long before you reach the airport, systems have already started forming an opinion based on your digital trail. Airlines and airports now rely heavily on digital consistency, how you book your ticket, where you manage your reservation, which device you use to check in, whether your personal details match cleanly across airline apps, emails, and booking platforms. These details may seem invisible, but they are continuously evaluated in the background. Small digital disruptions that once meant nothing now matter more. Switching devices close to departure, logging in from a new phone or browser, managing the same booking across multiple apps, repeatedly refreshing check-in pages. None of these actions are violations. They are common, especially for travelers trying to be efficient. But to automated systems designed for stability, they introduce uncertainty. When systems detect fragmented digital behavior, they do not ask for clarification, they slow the process instead. This is why some travelers encounter problems before security even begins. A mobile boarding pass fails to load, a check-in confirmation disappears,
Identity verification repeats unexpectedly. By the time a human employee becomes involved, the system has already categorized the interaction as irregular. In 2026, digital inconsistency is treated as operational risk. Once that label is applied, it quietly influences everything that follows, from identity checks to screening priority, even though the traveler never receives an explanation.
Change number 7. Timing has become a risk signal. For years, travelers were taught that arriving early solves most problems. In 2026, timing still matters, but not in the way people expect. It is no longer just about being early or late, it is about predictability. Automated airport systems now analyze when actions occur across the entire journey. When you check in, when you drop bags, when you pass through security, when changes are made to your booking. These timestamps are evaluated as patterns, not isolated events. This is why two passengers on the same flight can have completely different experiences. One moves through smoothly, the other encounters friction at multiple points, not because of mistakes, but because their timing behavior falls outside what the system expects. Checking in too close to departure, making multiple adjustments in a short window, rescanning documents after delays, responding to gate changes at the last minute. Individually, these actions are normal and often unavoidable, but when clustered together, they create unpredictability, and unpredictability is something automated systems are designed to reduce. This shift is especially confusing for experienced travelers who are used to adapting quickly. Flexibility once helped. In 2026, rapid adjustments can look like volatility when viewed through automated analysis. Once timing becomes a signal, it reinforces everything else. Identity verification becomes stricter, screening takes longer, manual review becomes more likely, not because something is wrong, but because the system is no longer confident. Nothing in this video is meant to discourage you from traveling. The goal is the opposite. Travel is still possible, it is still enjoyable, but it now requires a different mindset. In 2026, airports no longer reward experience the way they once did. They reward preparation, consistency, and alignment with how systems expect travelers to move. When you understand that, delays stop feeling random. Flags stop feeling personal, and the airport becomes predictable again. This is exactly why this channel exists. Airlines rarely explain these changes clearly. Airports assume you will figure them out on your own, and most people only learn after something goes wrong. Flight Decoder is about learning before the airport teaches you the hard way. If this video helped you understand what is really changing in 2026, take a moment to subscribe and share it with someone you care about, especially someone who travels less often or relies on older habits. These changes affect everyone, but preparation makes all the difference. Travel smart, travel prepared, and I'll see you in the next video.